Hey, 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 welcome everybody. All right, good news, good news, good news. We are back for episode two. Sorry, guys, trying to figure this thing out. We're a little bit behind schedule. Looks like we're running about 5 minutes late, but we got it going on. Um, First and foremost, let me introduce you to my fellow co host, Mr. Jason Klein.
What's going on, everybody?
And Jason and I have a special surprise today. We have picked us up somebody with that's way more computer and smarter than we are, Mr. Bruce from Bruce's Eclectic-World. Bruce, welcome to the show. We look forward to all the great stuff that you're going to bring for us.
Yeah.
We're going to give it a shot.
There we go. I was going to say we lost him for a second. Yeah, let me prelim this game. I'm getting some weather here in Central Florida, so if we do pop in and out, guys, it's only because of the weather, and we'll try to get right back to it. But welcome again, everybody, to the AMC Live with your host, myself, Mike from Scale Model Outlaw, and Jason Klein from KRD Klein Motorcar Design, or Race Car Design. I'm sorry, Jason, Race Car Design.
Close
Well,
enough.
as you guys know, maybe you don't know, we have a very special guest today. Uh, Jason, myself, are both look up to this guy and have followed him along and have been inspired by him. And what a great guy! We love having him on the show. He's going to be our very, very first guest. You guys may have seen him from the Blue Ox Model Shop. You may have seen him from the Scale Model Car podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we proudly give you Mr. Jason Hanscom.
There
What's
he
up,
is.
What's up, guys?
That's
How's
quite the
it going?
introduction, huh? Look at that. I'm getting
Yeah,
nervous.
wow. I'm a blush.
Oh, blush. There it
How
is.
are you?
That's it. That's it. Welcome to the show, my friend. Congratulations for being the first guy. It's either a good thing or a bad thing, but you are definitely our first guest, and you can either accept or deny somewhat of the responsibility that is the two clowns that you see in front of you. You have been a great mentor to both myself and Jason, and we couldn't think of anybody better to have on stage the first time or have on the show with us the first time than none other than the great Jason Hanscom. And that is your
Jesus
street name for
Christ.
today, the great
Wow. The
JH, the
great.
great
All right.
JH.
I'll take it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
You're
Absolutely.
welcome, man. We appreciate everything you've done for us. So,
Yeah, of course. Of
Now,
course.
Jason, I'll talk about when I say met you. I have had the luxury of meeting you in person, and I bow to your greatness, of course. But we met, had a lot of things in common, both being from the Northeast, both being Jeep guys. We were able to, text wise, we're able to hit it off pretty well, and had a lot of common things in common. But I wanted to express to some of the people that might be new to the Facebook world some of the information and advice that you had given me, and maybe you could share with everybody. But you had told me to be yourself,
Yes.
be consistent, and be
Hmm.
honest.
Exactly.
Uh, that for me, that's worked. It's pretty obvious that. I did an interview with Matt Lucasy, and he asked me straight up about where I got my different ideas from, and I would be a liar if I said I didn't. A bulk of what I'm doing, being in front of the camera like this, talking to people like talking to
Hmm.
the camera like it's my friend. Straight up, got that advice from you. Expunge on that. I mean, is that just something you figured out on your own, or is that something
Um.
somebody told you?
So the way it went down was I rehearsed making my first YouTube video for a week or two, honestly. And I tried every iteration I could think of. Having the camera point at my desk, I tried it all, and it was uncomfortable for me. I felt phony. I felt like I was talking to myself when I had the camera above me and I was, like holding a model in front of me, but you couldn't see me. Basically, I was giving you my point of view. It just didn't feel right. So I was at work one day and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try and talk to the camera and envision that a few of my buddies walked into the room and I was talking to them like they were standing here. And that is honestly, as soon as I did that video, now I will admit the first video it was scripted because I had no idea what I was doing and I didn't want to leave certain things out, right? That was the only video that was ever scripted, by the way. So, I talked to the camera. I had the script in front of me. What I couldn't have memorized because I was nervous, I read off the paper. You can tell if you go back to that first video, you can tell it's like I am talking like this, and I really appreciate that kind of stuff.
Robotic.
But that was
Reading from the prompter or
yeah,
teleprompter.
exactly. That was the only one. After that, I loosened up a little bit, and it's just getting easier and easier to be myself every video I make. So, yeah, that's how I came. Well, I came up with the idea. I can't say that I came up with that idea. There's lots of people on YouTube that do it that way, and I felt more drawn to those videos. Like the videos that they're looking at me while I'm watching them makes me feel more comfortable. So
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, because that's probably where it drew me in. Is it felt like you were talking directly to me as I was watching your builds.
yes,
So I think that's what inspired me to even get into this whole YouTube thing, and then the group build stuff.
yeah. Well, that's cool. I love hearing that I've inspired people to do something. That's honestly, that's why I started doing it. I wanted to try and be part of a community, be a decent part of the community, and inspire people. And it's working. So I'm considering it a win at this point.
For sure, definitely. And that's the big thing that me and Mike have always talked about, is to try and inspire people. Because to me, it's all about people, building them friendships, that camaraderie. You learn from each other. And that's the way I've carried out throughout my professional life, and then even my other hobbies as well. So
yeah,
there's just definitely more success in being positive than there is.
Oh yeah,
anybody can get mad at something. So
exactly.
But one thing that I wanted to always ask you was, how did you come up with the name Blue Ox Model Shop? What was the inspiration behind that?
Okay,
I know the answer to that one.
So, back about, I don't know, maybe it was 13 or 14 years ago, when I originally built my 1-to-1 Jeep. My daughter, Kylie, she's my middle daughter. Coincidentally, she's the daughter that just moved home. Her son is Michael, my grandson. So that daughter. We were putting the Jeep together, and I said, we should probably give the Jeep a name. And she went, "Oh, okay." So you got to think about it. What do you think's a good name for it? And she looked at it and she went, Paul Bunyan's Big Blue Ox? And I was like, yeah. She's like, I think we need to call it Babe. And I was like, oh no.
Well, that
no.
would go over great in the Jeep community.
That's a backfire. That's a backfire. And I was like, well, how about we call it the Big Blue Ox instead? And she's like, you know what? I like that. So we ran with it. It's on my plate. That's how people in the Jeep community refer to me. Big Blue. So it's always been part of my life, basically. So, but I figured I didn't want to be Jason's Model Shop or Wolfboro Model Works, or there was a bunch of other stuff that I thought about in my head, but I always kept coming back to the Blue Ox Model Shop because that's what it is.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah. Awesome story.
Yeah. Prior to the model shop, the Blue Ox model, was there a Blue Ox RC, a Blue Ox off road? So it's just straight up started Blue Ox. Okay, cool.
Yep,
cool.
That's it.
I know, like Jason, and we've got some other friends that were in different. Billy Strange is a perfect example. He was in uh, that what do they call that
Sim
uh,
game.
STEM game stuff, and then he just kind of rolled over and just kept the same name. I didn't know if maybe that was something you had done. I did the same thing. My Outlaw shop, I've always been the
Yeah,
Outlaw, so it just kind of rolled over. So
yeah. I
very,
never.
very cool.
I before this, I didn't do any sort of YouTubing. I kind of sort of had an Instagram, but it was just for family stuff. I didn't even I didn't realize that the modeling community was so large on YouTube until I actually started really paying attention to building my models. Like you, I looked up the first thing I found when I looked up, model cars on YouTube was Luca's channel first, then um, Matthew Inman's, obviously, that came up. Uh, and I got to be really good friends with Matthew. And that's kind of what kicked this whole thing going for me was becoming friends with him. Him and Sean, uh, they pushed me to do a channel. They were like, you know what? You don't need any fancy equipment. You can just do it off your phone.
Mhm.
You want to be part of the community, be part of the community. So I guess you guys owe them a thanks.
Yeah. Well, and that's
what
kind of the
year?
purpose of this too, is that, everything just transitions down and now it's landed on us. So it's
Yeah.
kind of all the history of, where everybody gets their inspiration, and then you kind of know where those pillars of the community really are.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead,
so,
Mike.
in your experience in the community, what year did you start? When did you start your YouTube channel?
I've been going for a little over 2 years.
2 years. In the
Yeah.
community itself, have you seen with let's say lives, or obviously you're on the very large podcast? Have you seen the community change at all? And as far as the direction of what's being seen or what's being watched the most. I know, to give you an example, Matt was telling me Matt Luke C back in the day, if you had a channel like all three of us have now where you're talking to the camera, like it would have failed epically. They wanted to see you working on your bench. And I get that. There's a place for that as well.
Hmm.
But have you, what would you say the biggest changes have been that you've seen in the community, good or bad, since you've been in it?
Honestly, I think the biggest change that I think I've seen is the growth of the hobby. Just in the and it's kind of a tricky thing to think about because from my perspective, um, I've seen what seems like large amounts of growth. You've got all these channels popping up. You guys are two great examples of really good modeling content that's come onto the scene. Podcasts. I didn't know there was a model specific podcast, be it military at the time, until about a year ago, and uh, that growth could be legitimate growth, which I think it is, but it also could be just the way that the hobby is changing from my perspective. Because as you get bigger in the community, things are naturally going to change. It's like I've become
Yep.
so busy. There's so many YouTube channels that I can't keep up with them all, and um, I'm on the phone every day, like with somebody different, talking to somebody in Arizona or talking to somebody in Florida or what have you. So I think it's growth is my biggest change since I've seen in the 2 years, and
I've
that's
seen.
obviously really good. That's
Right.
amazing, right? Because we want the hobby to grow, we want it to
Absolutely.
thrive. Um,
Absolutely.
there's been a
What
couple of things that I've seen that I didn't necessarily prescribe to, and I'm going to be honest with you, lives I never thought that lives had a positive impact on the hobby. I just didn't. I had been in a couple, but I didn't see anything positive coming from them. And I've noticed that they're starting to drop off. You know, those big 5 hour multi people hanging out and just shooting the breeze. That's kind of died off, and that might be attributed to the success and the uptick in things like Discord and StreamYard. You know, because a lot of people may be doing it on their own. Like I know there's multiple Discord channels you can get on. People, not just anybody can hop in. You don't have people starting trouble, stirring up stuff on those, right? Um, so I'm noticing that those kind of got really popular, and I didn't really agree with that, and I distanced myself from that stuff. I'm seeing it drop off, and I would love to see more of this type of format come back. You know, I think you guys are onto a good thing, and
Well, thank you for that for sure. And we're the same way. I think this is what inspired Jason and I to put our heads together and bounce some ideas off each other and snowball. We've been kicking this idea around since right after the beginning of the year, and it's just been a matter of sitting down between me selling the shop and all that stuff. I do believe that the some of the lives, the hangout, that's great. If you can go and hang out and have a good time. And we do some of that privately, like you've been involved with, and we all have our own little private thing that we do, and that's a place to be able to vent and hang out and cuss and whatever. But I
yeah,
agree with you that some of them, not all of them, and even some of the ones that have been around are starting to curb some of that behavior,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
great. I'll use Brian's for example. Not that his was ever out of hand, but I feel like, and I'm speaking for him, so if I'm out of line, I'm sure he'll straighten me. But I feel like he's wanting to get it more back to the hobby and what the hobby's about. The example I'll use for that was now if you're on his camera, he wants you to be working on something, right? And
mm,
that's I feel like that's a really good positive step to be working towards that.
yeah,
We don't want to have so much of a build site here. This is more of a get to kind of a not really a 10 questions to the modeler because that's very well covered already, but maybe an introduction to some on some new people. Jason and I are very much about getting the new guy that's got 100, 150 subs or 50 subs, getting
Yep.
him an opportunity to see and learn and possibly be on here. We're going to make a solid effort to get new faces up here because that's like you said earlier, that's how you're going to get the hobby to grow, allowing
yes,
new people in that they bring somebody. I mean, let's just use, for example, the people in this room, with the exception of Bruce, who's been doing it a long time, but you got you that essentially brought in Jason and myself. So if we can affect two people and they affect two people and they affect two people, the hobby's bound to grow. So
yeah, exactly.
that's what we're looking for here. We do want to, and we'll get to it later on, but we do like to have some sort of uh, informative session, and that maybe a technique that you use, and I know you and I have talked about that, and we'll get to that a little bit later on.
Yeah,
Still early on, yet we still want to know more about the big blue ox and
yeah,
Jason Hansen. So
yeah.
um, now there's a bunch of trigger questions out there on the old interwebs, so we're gonna hit you with a couple of them.
Okay.
The first one I have for you is what is your opinion on the 3D printed stuff mixed with the styrene stuff? What is your opinion on 3D printed parts in general, as far as in the hobby?
I think 3D printed parts is one of the best things that's happened in the hobby in recent years. Um, 3D printed stuff opens up so many avenues of things that you can do to a model that you couldn't before. Um, I mean, there are some people out there that can scratch build some amazing things, but I am not one of them. So the fact that I can go and get a 3D printed part that I am envisioning in my head and incorporate it into one of my models is amazing.
Cool.
Is amazing. I am very thankful for the 3D printed aftermarket that we have available to us right now.
And there's so many great guys doing it. Jason, for one, is he's a little homegrown 3D printer guy, and he sends me some stuff. We go back and forth. He made me some coilovers to put on my senior tribute build that I swear to God, if you could sprinkle magic dust on them and they grew up into real life, I wouldn't have to spend near as much on coilovers for my Jeep. But Jason, you got something for Jason? We got a bunch of Jasons going on, but what you got?
Well, I guess one of them would be for me too is obviously you've touched on this in your videos about spray paint versus airbrush. Can you elaborate a little bit on why you prefer spray cans versus airbrushing? Is it just something that in your feel, or is it something that how the paint lays down?
So, honestly, it's because I am a stubborn person that does not like change. I am very comfortable with a spray can. And it's almost like, okay, I know I can do a pretty good job with a spray can, so I just stick with it, right? In reality, I should be using my airbrush more because it's better cost effectiveness to have airbrush paint than it is a rattle can. You're going to spend the same amount of money on a jar of paint that you can paint 3 models with versus you'll be lucky if you get. I only get 1 really out of a rattle can. So I've done both. I can do both pretty well. I just always seem to go back to that rattle can because it's easier for me to just grab it and paint something and I'm done. There's no cleanup. There's no mixing. There's none of that stuff. And I guess that just means I'm lazy.
So the convenience of it then.
Yeah,
wins.
exactly. Yeah,
For me, the natural progression. I mean, I was back in the day because those of you that know my story, I got out of the hobby for a long, long time and got back into it here in the last couple of years. But for me, I got pretty handy with a rattle can. But the next progression for me was airbrush. But the biggest thing that lured me to it is these companies, MCW, Scale Finishes, even to me, the multitude of different colors,
Oh,
and the
yeah.
fact that if you want to build, and I don't necessarily build them, but we'll use the Hudson for an example. That Oriental green that's on that Hudson is a color that was available on that Hudson in 1954. So it kind of gives it, you get a little bit of that compared to whatever's available in the can. And again, there's nothing wrong with the can, but for me, it was the availability and the multitude of colors.
Yeah, for sure.
Paint too.
Yeah. Exactly, for sure. So you got what? Maybe 100 different color choices with the Tamiyas and the extreme lacquers. If you combined all of it, like the flats, the military stuff, the lacquers, you've got what 100 different color choices with rattle cans versus you've got thousands of color choices with airbrush stuff, right? Yeah. So you're right. I really, really should be doing more with my airbrush. I should. You guys may have guilted me into it just now. I might actually, I might break the airbrush out tomorrow and paint the next thing I've got to paint. See what
I mean, I think they both have their purpose. But I was just kind of curious because I know some people just, they just prefer the rattle can because they feel that it's already at the right mixture. They don't have to, mess around with that. Certain paints, like some of the enamels, they're recommending to put hardeners in them. Mm-hmm. People just don't want to play chemistry set,
Yeah, no, I get you. I only spray, whether it's rattle can or with the airbrush, I only spray lacquers. I tried doing the enamels. It just wasn't. Again, it all comes down to being comfortable, right? And on top of being nervous to a point, because I was airbrushing, now I'm trying to mix this stuff and make sure that it's like, okay, did I mix that right? And I'm starting to second guess myself. And then I, because I'm not thinking about what I'm doing, I'm thinking about, did I do it right? The paint jobs didn't come out good. I tried some enamels and I'm like, forget it. I'd rather just take a lacquer, a pre-mixed lacquer that I can just put in the gun and shoot. So
that's literally how I found Scale Finishes. I was looking for airbrush ready paint because I didn't want to go through all that. I didn't know enough about paint. I'd understand from watching different videos and even some of the podcasts the other day that apparently enamel's dry with a crust on the top and it doesn't gas out from. I mean, it takes forever to gas out, and I didn't know any
Yeah.
of that. So airbrush ready
Yeah.
paints is the reason how I
Yeah.
found scale finishes, and then onto MCW. But
Hmm.
well, that's awesome, man. Everybody. Oh yeah, I mean, you gotta answer the one question that is on everybody's mind. I'm a little bit late, but yellow plug wires or no?
Absolutely. On everything.
On
Yeah.
everything.
Who started that whole war?
Oh, gosh. I don't even remember. I just remember it was funny because,
It
It
was
was
fun.
funny.
It
yeah.
was
It
fun.
was funny.
It's like that's like poking the bear, right? That one in the Rust-Oleum question. Who uses Rust-Oleum and who uses Krylon? Man, it just
Holy
goes off the
cow.
rails with that stuff.
Holy cow. Yeah.
But it's fun to watch, and the the Facebooks and everybody when they got a
Yeah.
comment and every
Yeah.
DG just put in capital letters yellow wires.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yellow wires on everything. Yeah.
So let me ask
So,
you this. There's so many brands of kits out there, and you always hear people that say these kits suck, these kits are great. What would be, say, your top 2 brands that you like the best?
Top 2 brands of model kits. So my first favorite brand would be the I gotta say the newer Revell stuff that's coming out. Um,
Okay.
I just love a Revell kit. Always have. I always will. I think the detail they're stepping it up with their detail and the way they're molding stuff and the styrene or the plastic or whatever you want to call it is a better quality. Second would be a Tamiya kit. A Tamiya
Okay.
kit just falls together.
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot
See,
of people get
I've only built a couple of the Tamiyas, but they were
Yeah.
mainly just the bodies and threw them on slot cars. I've never
Yeah.
done the chassis or any of the rest of
Right.
it where it was a model, but their
Yeah.
fit and finish is good, and I agree with the Rebel. But I know a lot of people hate AMT, but I for some reason kind of gravitate towards a lot of AMT stuff.
Some of the AMT stuff is okay. Admittedly, some of it's maybe not the greatest and not very detailed, right? But some of the AMT stuff from the 90s has amazing detail.
Yeah.
Amazing detail. And honestly, I'm thankful that we have the companies we have from AMT to MPC to, all of it.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I agree as far as the different companies because we don't want to talk crap about any one kit. And I know that GTO kit from is it AMT catches a
it's,
lot of crap, but you've built one and made it look great. I know that there's others that are working on them. I would you start bashing a kit, and especially if you have any kind of influence on the old YouTubes and whatever. Next thing you know, nobody's buying that kit because they heard from so and so that's a piece of crap, and then it AMT or round two or whoever decides, well, nobody's buying it, so we're going to pull it. Now we've lost it forever. So
Yeah.
I
yeah,
agree that if it didn't suit you, it didn't suit you, and don't try not to bash anybody or
yeah.
bash them about it.
Well,
And back to the Tamiya kits, I hear that a lot. The old cliche: just put some paint in the box and some glue in the box and shake it, and it comes out done, ready to go.
yeah.
That's obviously that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I never want to lose sight on the Tamiya stuff. As far as I'm concerned,
Mhm,
is it's not that they're easy kits; it's that they're
mhm.
engineered really well. And
Yeah,
they do have different levels. They have the level like you were talking about, Jason, where that last Porsche that I did. And you notice how I said Porsche, not Porsche.
I do
Thank you, Matt.
appreciate that too.
But that was one of those ones that was converted from a slot car body. But yet I've got the 300 Mercedes back here that is very detailed, and it
Mhm,
just depends on what you want to do. But they're
exactly.
no matter which one of the Tamiya kits you get, they're engineered very, very well.
Yeah, I have Tamiya kits. I have everything from they call it a snap lock kit. Um, that's super simple. It's basically one of their like snap tight kits, right? But it looks amazing, and I have everything right up to a full detail Tamiya kit, and they just really are an amazing model company. They do so well with their molds and their details and their design and the way everything goes together. But they take a backseat to Revell. I don't know why. I love Revell kits.
So
Jason KRD, didn't you just pick up a Revell Porsche?
yeah, that thing is top notch, man. That thing just fits together nicely. So
Yeah.
I'm doing the Porsche build, and it's a nice kit. I gotta give them credit. It's beautiful.
Nice.
The ones that I really love are the special editions with all the multiple parts in them.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Yeah.
give you a lot of options in those kits. So,
Right. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of the older Revell kits are holy cow.
yeah,
Like the 57 Chevy that they have that were, opening doors, trunk,
oh,
hood. Their Ford pickup, I think it's a 53 or a 55 Ford pickup, same way. Everything opens, right? I
yeah.
built those too, and yeah, those almost didn't see the light. Yeah, I almost smashed a couple of those. Let's just be honest and blunt. I was like, I'm gonna smash this thing because it's making me so mad. So there are
They had
AMC
us.
kits that are better than that, right? Everybody's you can't really say one kit company is awful compared to the rest, even if it's an MPC.
Revell came out with that Saint series back in the late '90s. The one with the Henry J in it, and then it had a
Yeah,
Camaro in it, and it was
yeah,
like over engineered, 2-piece doors that opened, and the wheels were like 5-piece wheels, and it was way more than what it needed to be. It made it difficult to get together, but
yeah,
Well, they're fragile too. The door
yeah,
hinges
super
stuff
fragile.
all fragile on them.
right.
That's it. That's it. So let's talk about some of the shows that you've been to, Jason. I know you're up in the Northeast, up there in New Hampshire.
Hmm.
What's some of the places that you've traveled to, and some of the experiences that you've had at different shows?
Well, so I've been to JaxCon. I haven't traveled a lot. I'm not a big traveling kind of guy, but I have been to JaxCon. We went down there, and I had the pleasure of meeting Fred Henry and Old Tom, and obviously Matthew Inman, all those guys. I'd have to say that was probably one of the best experiences I've had at a show, only because I got to meet some of the people that I really looked up to. Excuse me. And we had fun. I brought my USAC build down, put it on the table next to a bunch of other ones. That was really cool to do. Obviously, NNL East, New Jersey. That show goes without saying. It's billed as being the biggest model show on earth, I think is what they call it. And it's pretty close. It's pretty close.
I
I
was
mean, I've
very,
never,
very close to going to that this year. You had invited me to that, and I was
yeah.
trying to get there, but it fell right about the time that I was starting to shut the doors
Mhm.
down at the shop, and just
Right.
couldn't get away. But I was hoping to get to that one, and
Yeah.
JaxCon. Yeah, I was there at JaxCon a year after you were there, and was fortunate enough to meet some of the same folks that you met: Old Tom, Fred Henry, which Fred's in the chat. Hey, Fred,
Hmm.
Brian. There's a bunch of guys we got to meet, and was really happy about that. But
Yeah.
I have found. Well, let me before I get to that, let me ask you the second part of the show question. When you go to a show and you carry, and I've watched some of your videos where you've been surprised and happy about bringing home some hardware. When you're building a model, or is that something that you're thinking about? Are you thinking about I should do this because it'll look good for the show, or is it just something that you want to do? Elaborate.
So there are times when I build models for specifically for shows, but I don't ever think, okay, I want to build this model and I want to build it this way because I want to bring home an award. That's not what I think about. Um, I build models to bring to shows because, well, so we'll say NNL East this past year, one of the themes was the 75 years of the 49 Merc, right? And
Right.
a very good friend of mine that's part of the Classic Plastic Model Club that I'm in, he was like, you know what? We should build Mercs and bring them because that's so I was like, yeah, you know what? I will. So that's why I built the Merc that I did and the way I did it. I was not going there looking for accolades or attaboys. I wanted it to be the best it could be because I was putting it on the table next to my friend's build also. And the Classic Plastic Show, we do that every year. That has themes and club challenges and tribute builds. And I build something for that every year. Same thing. I don't ever build thinking, okay, boy, I'm doing a really good job on this one. This one's going to get me an award. No, I don't think that. I want it to be the best it can be because I want it to be worthy of sitting on the table next to the other builds that are there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And every one of the awards you see behind me, you can ask Heather. I was literally shocked that I got every one of them. Literally shocked that I was being presented with the award because I don't see myself as an award-winning model builder. I just don't. I rattle can everything, and it's like, who's gonna bring a rattle can model to a show and win an award with that? That's my thought process.
Apparently, you are.
Well, sometimes I guess so.
Got to be different.
Now, from what I'm hearing, and like I said, we've got a friendship, so I know you a little bit. I think you're in the same boat as myself and Jason, in that we would much rather get a pat on the back from a fellow builder at a show as opposed to getting, to have a Fred Henry or a BG or a Jason Hanscom come up and say, "Hey, man, that looks really good. You did a good job on that."
Yeah.
I don't care if I take home a piece of cardboard after that. I've got that kind of an accolade from guys whom I respect.
Oh, well, so I can tell you, so I've been working on this 66 Impala. I've done a few update videos on it. I've shown a couple people the stuff. Well, I finished it today, and I sent a picture of it to somebody that I look up to and talk to on a regular basis, somebody that's one of my mentors as well as one of my best friends in the whole world. I sent a picture to him, and he was like, "You know what, dude? That looks nice. Good job." And that was like, oh, that's awesome. To hear that from someone of his caliber, that's it. That's it. I could put that model on the shelf and never touch it again, to be honest with you. That's all it takes.
That's cool.
For me.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So how many kits have you produced?
How many what?
How many kits have you produced on all your shelves there? I know the shelf behind you. I see that every time in the video, and there's a lot of them back there.
Well, so that one's kind of dwindling down. Those are the older builds before I started doing YouTube. Mike's been here. He's seen the room in person. He knows how many are here. I would have to say all together, probably 200.
Wow. That's good. That's a good portion.
That is a bunch. Yeah, that is the thing. Now, apparently, Jason's going to New Hampshire and visiting Jason has become the mecca of YouTube modelers. Everybody. I mean, I'm in good company because I showed up and guys like BG have been there. How many people have you had invade your poor home and drive your lovely wife crazy?
Well, so I've had people that watch my channel that live close by that I never would have met before had it not been for the YouTube videos. I've had them stop and say hi. I've had Matthew Inman, BG's been here. George Oppenheim was just here. You've been here. Boy, as far as YouTubers, I think that's it. Honestly, just 4 of you.
It seems like every time we turn around, you're getting company from one of us.
It's an open invite. If any of you guys want to come on up,
I remember.
I'll grill you some sausages, and you can have a beer. Just make sure you don't drop them on the floor.
Right.
BG can tell you all about that. But yeah.
Apparently, there's no dropping drinks or dropping sausages on the floor. Well, I can tell you that I got there later in the afternoon, and the first day I arrived, and had to back out to go down and leave the driveway, and I was headed to the motel room. And as I was backing out, both Mr. and Mrs. Blue Ox had their arm around each other, facing away from me, looking up, and all I could think of was, He's begging for forgiveness. He's asking her, telling her, "I'm so sorry. These people just keep showing up to my house, honey. I'm so sorry. Yes, yes, he's coming back tomorrow. Please, please forgive me. I promise I'll cut the grass, take the trash out. Please, please forgive me."
That wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at all, actually.
That was funny.
That's pretty funny, but yeah, not the case.
uh, well, all right, man. We're getting about 40 minutes into it. We like to try to keep it around an hour.
Okay.
So, as we mentioned earlier, we like, if possible, to maybe do a demonstration or maybe tell us a little bit about something that you do to your models and some or a technique that you use, anything, or even something that you want to show. If you got anything like that, Jason, we'd love to hear some input and your ideas.
Well, I can. I've thought about this a little bit, and I don't really have anything special that I do to any of my builds. Okay. The only thing I would say that helps me produce a really nice model is my paint process. And this is a hot topic nowadays, as you know. And I've been told it's overkill, but it doesn't matter because it's what works for me. Whether what I'm doing is overkill or not makes me feel good about the process, right? So, I wet sand everything to 12,000. The primer. I mean, I'm not super crazy. I'm not like insanely crazy. I don't wet sand the bare plastic, but the primer, the paint, the clear coat, and then on top of that, I polish. I use a hobby grade wet sanding paper. I think I have some maybe right here. So this one's got, it's a little square. I've got 4,000 written on the back of it. It's a hobby grade style wet sanding paper. Usually I would like to start at 4,000, but sometimes stuff is a little rougher than 4,000 can handle.
Yep.
So 3,200 is a good starting point. And just wet sand from 3,200 up to 12,000 on every coat. And I think you and I have talked about this. You've asked me this before. And I go slow.
Let me interject real quick. I want to step back to something that you said.
Yeah.
Hobby grade. Now I know what you're talking about, but maybe some of our viewers are not quite sure. Hobby grade is different from something you get at the hardware store.
Well, way different. You're going to get hardware. We're not even. Okay, I don't even think hardware store when I'm thinking about getting my sandpaper. Right? You can go to
even a part store.
You can go to a parts store and you can get an automotive grade wet sanding paper, but the grit is heavier.
Okay.
So they have a hobby grade, and I have the paper right here. You got to go to Micro Surface Finishing Products, right there.
Okay.
If anybody wants to investigate or look into getting this stuff, you can private message me, email me. I mean, I'm not a hard guy to find, and I'll give you all the information on the products that I use. But it has to be a hobby grade. It's not as aggressive as an automotive grade. And it's not cheap. It's like, I think the last time I bought some, it was close to $50. They come in 6x6 sheets, and I cut them into squares like this. My buddy Tim Ryan taught me that's how he did it, so that's how I do it. And
a square that size would probably do a whole car, though, right? I mean, and then maybe
you get it. I have been using this 4,000. I think I've wet sanded 7 or 8 bodies with this piece.
Okay. So it's an upfront investment, but you get your money's worth out.
It is. You do. And I think the trick is, so I use warm water, but I always put just a touch of Dawn dish soap in it. It helps lubricate the paper a little bit, and it kind of makes it easier on the paper. And like I said, just go slow. Take your time. I wear my magnifiers. I have a dream. That one day I'm going to plumb a sink into this counter over here so that I have a wet sanding station right here, because this plumbing that runs under the floor, I can do it. The bathroom, the master bathroom is right behind that wall. I could tie it in very easily.
Yeah.
And I could have a wet sanding sink in here. But as of right now, I go into the bathroom. So I set myself up in the bathroom. You know, I got my magnifiers, I got all my sanding paper laid out and the soapy water, and I just go slow and easy until, you know, every bit of that orange peel is gone.
Somehow I just had a vision of you in a bubble bath playing with your sandpaper and model cars. I'm trying to get that image out of my head right now.
Well, I mean, the water gets cold, so you know that's. But yeah,
we chased a little bit of rabbits. I'm sorry, but back to what you were
okay.
saying. So you sand the primer, you're sanding the
I
colors.
I use Tamiya. That's the other thing. Products, right? I don't care if you use hardware store paint. I don't care if it's something. If you're happy with your model, you spray paint it with Rust-Oleum or whatever that Walmart brand paint is, and you're happy with the way it came out, that's fine. That's all that matters to me. That's you. But if you want to take it to that next level, and that's what I did want to do, in my opinion, you have to use paints that are driven to be used on model cars. So the Tamiyas, like I said,
MCW.
MCW, yeah, geez, I'm going blank here. MCW, that kind of stuff. Rattle cans, the extreme lacquers, the testers, that kind of stuff. I use Tamiya primer on everything. That's another thing I've been told I probably shouldn't be doing, but it works for me. I use Tamiya fine surface primer under everything, even the stuff I airbrush. Wet sand it smooth. If you can wet sand your primer to the point where you think you can clear coat it and it's going to look good, you're ready to paint. And then,
sweet. Yeah, I've done that to me, even with the airbrush stuff. The biggest reason that I focus on the airbrush is because I know it's next level and I needed to get better at it. You've seen from the bug to where we're at now, from the bug to the Porsche. And with your help, there's been some progress there, but it's just me trying to get better at it and go that and get the clear, the whole process, that whole process that you were just talking about. The same way with the clear coat. Tell us about how you do your clear coat to cap everything off.
So basically the same way. So with the paint process, the primer, I hose it on there, wet sand it smooth, hose it on there again if I have to, wet sand it smooth. With the paint process, depends on the paint I'm using, right? But I'm going to say, let's talk about rattle cans because it's going to be more prevalent, right? More people use rattle cans. So I do light mist coats, and then I get a little bit heavier as I go until I'm done, until I feel like I've put usually 4 or 5 coats of paint. Same way with the clear. I start with light mist coats. I wait 10 to 15, sometimes 20 minutes in between coats, right? Because I've had problems with them not gassing out in time and then having solvent pop. So I tend to slow down on my clear coat. Like wait in between. And I don't think I've ever wet sanded in between coats, to be honest with you. A lot of people do that, but I haven't. I've always just laid my coats down. Some of them comes out looking like a wrinkly orange. Some of it comes out looking like glass. And that's all in where the wet sanding comes into play. If it's got a little bit of orange peel to it or some dust, you're going to get dust. I don't care what you're doing, unless you're in a clean room environment or a professional spray booth. You're going to get dust.
Yep.
And that's what you do. You wet sand out the imperfections and you're good to go. I just saw Fred in the chat say application coats depends on temperatures. Yes, I've been bit by that bug recently. The Impala I had to strip the body because it was too humid and hot when I was doing it. I shouldn't have been painting, but I was. And I was educated by my good friend Matt out in Arizona what happened was it blushed. So the clear coat, it looked cloudy and milky and yuck, right? And no matter what I did, I could not get it to come out of it, wet sanding it. So I was told, too humid, shouldn't have been painting. So yes, temperatures and humidity play a huge factor. That's another thing I've learned over this summer. Next year, this room will be air conditioned so that I can actually not have to worry about that.
Yeah.
I've got an air conditioner in here, but I've also had to go so far as to get a dehumidifier. And I mean, I live in Florida. It's 100% humidity in the wintertime. Never mind summertime.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize. I bought one of those little room ones. They're about so tall and so big. And literally, if I leave that thing running, it'll fill that little half a quart cup up a day, easy.
Yeah.
And so you don't realize it until you start extracting it out of the air, and then you start realizing it's pretty damn wet in here. But
yeah.
Jason, you got something for Jason, and welcome back. By the way, I don't know what happened to you. You pushed the wrong button or something.
Storm here. Starting to storm.
Storm.
Yeah, I had to switch to my other internet. What age were you when you first started building?
Very first started building?
Yeah.
I think I was 7.
That's kind of similar to a lot of us. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to build a model kit, and I remember the kit. It was the Monogram 69 Camaro, that really funky, misshapen, white, if you want to call it white one. Yep. I sat down with my dad. I built that kit. I didn't use a stitch of paint on any of it, and I probably used an entire tube of Tester's orange glue. But I remember that like it was yesterday, and I'm gonna build that kit again.
Yeah, I know.
I know you are. I know you are. I had asked Jason that very same question, and ironically, that was my very first glue together by myself, without help from my brother and whatever. It was my first glue together one. And we got the same story, the one bottle of black Tester's paint that you painted the interior with and used the whole bottle, and then the whole bottle of the orange Tester's glue. Jason and I were talking about that, and it was right about the time that Ollie's repopped that kit. So I've got an OG. He and I are planning on doing a buddy build one day if we can ever get through these group builds, even though I do distinctly remember a guy at the beginning of the year telling everybody, I'm not doing as many group builds this year. Please don't be offended. Try to understand. And now look at him. He's in all the same group builds he was last year.
Yeah, it's because
I did hear that. Yes,
you did. But I've got friends that drag me into them. So kicking and screaming the whole way.
So was your father the inspiration, or I know you've said in your videos too, your cousin is a very avid model builder too, right?
Yeah, I have a couple of cousins and an uncle. So the inspiration was my Uncle Pete. He, when I was super small, my parents would go over there. They had a card night. Every Saturday night was poker night, right? They'd go over there and play penny poker. And I would run around the house like a typical 5 or 6 year old kid. And they'd be like, go downstairs and look through the magazines, leave us alone. And downstairs was where he had his race car. He had a Chevelle station wagon, stock eliminator car.
Nice.
And he had all his models in this glass, like curio cabinet style thing. And he had every year of the model car enthusiast. I'm going blank here. The model car magazine from back in the day.
Scale model.
Yeah. He had scale autos. He had those. He had hot rod magazines. He had Carcraft magazines, and he had them all by year on these shelves. And I would just look at the models, look at his unbuilt models, through the magazines. That is what kicked off the passion. I would go there every week and do the same thing, look at everything, the same thing, nothing ever changed, until I got old enough where I said, Dad, can I build a model like that? And we went to KB Toys and picked up that Camaro. Yep.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
We will have to get that buddy build together. we're creeping up on our hour. We're not trying to cut it off, but do you have anything, Jason, that you'd like to promote? I'll start out that we want to promote our Saturday night short track build that Jason and I are hosting. We've got a lot of guys that have got a bunch of cars done. Jason, you've got one of them done, or you got both of them done?
I've got one done.
Got one done. All right. I wasn't sure if you
Yep.
were doing two or not. Been
I
getting some
am
great
doing
email-
two. I'm
Are
going to
you?
do two, but I'm going to space it. So I did the first one. I'm going to get through some of this other stuff that I've got to do. And then I think because it's a whole year, right after the first of the year is when I'm going to start my second one. Yeah.
That's kind of the schedule I'm on. I'm going to do my late model first.
Mhm.
Mr. Ron Kuhn recently sent me a bunch of stuff for it, so we're going to get it back up. I'm working on a group build from the coast to coast thing too. But
Yeah.
so besides the Saturday night short track, what are you promoting now?
Okay, so I've got to start out by promoting my channel. Obviously, if you don't know who I am, the Blue Ox Model Shop on YouTube. Go check me out. Give me a subscription, a thumbs up, comment, watch my stuff. You know, all that stuff that the YouTubers say. I do host a Street Machine group build every year. Starts around June 1st, goes until December 31st. I did do a video on kind of outlining the rules. Love to have anybody that isn't in that group build jump in. That's a lot of fun, and I really do enjoy seeing those videos and those builds as they unfold.
That's another one that I got to get started on. I got all the pieces and parts, but
Yeah.
Jason Klein, what are you doing for the Street Machine group build?
For the Blue Ox channel?
Yeah.
55 Chevy.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we're sharing a show together. What? No, I've seen it. The thing looks amazing. It's really cool. I still got that 120th scale AMX sitting up there on the shelf. It stays right above my head and screams at me all night. You need to work on me. You need to work on me.
Right. Well, it'll make you feel better, Mike. I'm doing an AMC, so that makes up for it, right?
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
You got the Street Machine build, and what else you got going on?
So I've got to promote what I think is probably the thing that I'm having the most fun on right now. Is my podcast. Well, not my podcast, a podcast that I am the co-host of. I do this every couple week podcast with three of probably the nicest guys you're ever going to get to know. They've become like brothers. They're family. So we get together and do this thing, and we have a blast with it. It's the Scale Model Car Podcast. Can be found on Spotify and some other podcast related places, but I don't know what they are. I don't know where else. It's like, I think it's like maybe Stitcher, Apple Podcast, something like that. But you can find it on Spotify.
Matt
like
said, not Chuck. I guess all the nice things you said about everybody, apparently, according to Matt, says not Chuck.
well, I still don't understand why people watch his crap, but
I don't think he asked that same question every time.
Yeah, no, that's I think I'm having the most fun with that right now. That is just so much fun, and we have some cool people from time to time as guests, but most of the time it's just us kind of shooting the breeze and being four buddies talking about models. So
that's it. Doing the model car report.
Yeah, doing the model car report. Yeah.
Hey, I got my one.
So go check it out, everybody. Go check it out.
Great show. I'm a huge fan. I've watched every episode. Love it. It's one of those ones that you can set up. I got this little holder over here. You guys heard me talk about that before. We got my little phone holder over here. I even turn it sideways and get to look at your beautiful mugs on screen while I'm building. It's great background noise or background fodder, if you will.
Right.
Definitely check out that podcast.
Yeah.
These guys do a heck of a job over there.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Yeah, you guys won't be disappointed. I listen to it at work. I don't get to see the faces, but because I listen to it at work, I do use the Spotify to download that and listen to it. It's a great show. Good job, Jason.
Thank you.
Everybody, BG's in here, Matt's in here. I was
going to say three quarters of the podcast is in here.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're great guys.
thanks to those guys for showing up in the chat and everybody else that showed up. Jason, big thank you for coming in, being our first guest. I know I can speak for Jason Klein when I say you've been a heck of a mentor, a positive influence in this community, and we are honored to have you on as our first guest. And I'm
thank
sure
you. I
Jason's got
appreciate
some
that.
things he'd like to say.
Thanks to Bruce up there for answering all the questions and being so gracious to help us out as well.
Thank you, Bruce. We definitely appreciate that, guys. As we grow, we will get this a little bit more organized and maybe even a little bit more professional. But I kind of like the grassroots of it right now. It's giving everybody a chance to get their feet wet and learn a little bit about this and getting some great people on board. We want to be a positive part of this community, and having positive people in it is the way to go. So, again, thank you all. Thank you to my co-host, Jason. Thank you, Bruce. And thank you, Jason Hanscom from Blue Ox Model Shop. We appreciate you guys. We would like to announce, Jason, would you like to announce who our next week's guest is going to be?
I'm waiting to get back on the timeline here, so we'll post that this weekend. We'll do that. We got to give some people some time to organize.
Oh,
sounds
boy,
good. Well, we definitely got.
I'm going to be on the edge of my seat all week. I can tell.
Maybe that'll be the Model 4.
All right, guys. Again, we appreciate y'all. Chat. Thank y'all so much for coming in. BG, Norman, Fred. I'm looking at Paul. I'm looking at everybody here that I can see. If I didn't mention you, I apologize. We appreciate each and every one of y'all. Be good, be safe, and keep on modeling.
See ya.
See you guys.
Bye.